Welcome inside the parlor, which again feels like very strange times of constant change. I mean, in my lifetime, there has only ever been one queen. The ties between Canada and Great Britain are deep. We were a dominion for the longest time. The Queen visited our country more than any other. And in my household, even though we were German, my parents were bang into the monarchy. We received Majesty magazine every single month, and it was not Christmas until we had listened to the Queen's speech. So I'm filled with a sense of nostalgia and warmth right now, but again, looking ahead to more change. And since there was no Leicester game and we're waiting until Southampton on Friday, I thought I would dedicate this show to Aston Villa's Crest redesign. Like you, I took the fan survey on the matter and found it actually a very strange approach. And later, I will actually attempt to design an Aston Villa logo out of thin air as we talk Crest and logo design on the Holy Trinity show, and as we toast the incredible reign of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. My background is in broadcast and communications, which dovetails nicely into marketing because on radio and TV, you're always selling something. But I never really truly understood marketing or that I had a marketing and storytelling gene until about 6 years ago when I had the incredible opportunity to help launch the brand identities of our Canadian Premier League clubs, about half of them. It was an amazing experience. Got to go across this beautiful country, coast to coast, and talk to supporters and then take those stories and turn them into the visual identities of these clubs. And it was the guy who led this team that changed my life. You know, he taught me what marketing actually was and the importance of storytelling behind brand identities. And I am forever grateful for finding this mentor. His name is Roy Nasrallah. And prior to moving to Canada, he was a vice president for Nike in Dubai. And as we know, Nike is not an apparel company. Nike is a sports marketing company, and it is one of the best in the world. And incredibly, it was Roy who was one of the catalysts for one of the most successful products in Nike's history, and that was the athletic hijab. And this is a product that required navigation on so many fronts: royal families, politics, religion, gender equality issues. But when they finally released that product, Nike's market share in the Middle East doubled twice, I think from 14 to over 60. And when I finally got to meet Roy for the first time, and I knew all this stuff, I talked to him about it and I said, it must have been incredible to achieve that kind of market share with one product. And his response to me literally changed my life. So Roy says to me, Peter, market share, who cares market share? Women running in the streets of Dubai. And the light went on. You know, it wasn't about profit or market share. It was the fact that women, Muslim women, were able to play golf, tennis, jog, futsal, football, all of it without a hijab falling off. It was breathable and comfortable. And then Nike would create the very running clubs that would gather at midnight at 7 a.m. in the Middle East because it was so hot. I mean, that's what just doing it was all about. But it was Roy's process that was so important. He hated the idea of pretty little design elements to make a pretty little logo. There had to be meaning and stories behind all of it. And the first part of that is gathering data and information. So we started the process by going across the country and canvassing fans. And of course, Canada is a massive country that has very distinct regions. And even within a region, two communities can be totally different. So we had to find out from the fans what those unique stories were that defined those communities. And then we took that information and we started building brands from scratch because these were all new clubs. Now, in the case of Aston Villa, not a new club, founded in 1874, So the challenge is actually trying to include all of the aspects that make Aston Villa unique from all other clubs in the world. But I found the process of canvassing fan opinions, basically voting on design elements, as kind of odd, because that's subjective. Do you like the shape of this? Does that feel modern, heritage? Does it emit confidence? What we need are the objective, authentic stories that then inspire the design elements. That, to me, is how you create a badge that tells a whole bunch of stories. One of the little things that worries me about our club right now is we seem to make a lot of decisions based on image and commercial aspects of our club. Hiring Steven Gerrard's a perfect example. I mean, a very high-profile player, young, handsome, good hairline. And then we're redesigning the North Stand, and yes, it connects the Doug Ellis with the Trinity, but, is there any personality to it or anything that makes it stand out from all the other grounds? Because the back of it looks rather generic, like Anfield. And I don't want us to be a generic, soulless club. I want us to stand for something. I want us to be authentic and not always be motivated by the commercial outcomes. And that's why I found it very strange that we were being asked questions like, which of these championship logos do you like? Or which of these international club logos do you like? Well, what do they have to do with Aston Villa? As fate would have it, it took a Villa boy in Dean Smith to go through the process of identifying what Aston Villa was and what it wanted to be. And he's done that at every club he's been at, and I'm sure he's done it at Norwich because he's huge on culture. And all culture is a consistent demonstration of values and behaviors over a long period of time. And if everybody is doing that, your organization has good culture. And in my opinion, ideally, a club's badge is just the visual representation of those values and those behaviors. So when you walk into work and you see the crest, you go, I know what we're about. I know what I should be doing. Let's get busy. So let's get started, and I want to make this plain. I am not a graphic designer. I'm a storyteller. I try to find the stories and infuse them into the designs, and a lot of those stories should be influenced by the community because the community serves the club serves the community, the people involved are often the same, as are the values. And in the city of Birmingham, we are very, very lucky to have such an interesting, diverse, and dynamic city to draw inspiration from. Before we can actually get into the process of designing a badge, we have to go through the critical exercise of clearly identifying who we were, who we are, and who we aspire to be. Because without that stage, how are we supposed to identify the appropriate design elements that clearly represent our virtues, values, and our aspirations? When Randy Lerner took over the club back in the early 2000s, he decided to rebrand. That's an owner's prerogative. They often like to do that, refresh, rebrand. Of course, there's a commercial outcome to that decision. And when he did, he evolved from the previous badge to this. I neither loved it nor hated it. It's rather generic, simple, straightforward, not a lot of stories being told there. But when Dean Smith was hired by Aston Villa, he did go through the process of trying to clearly identify what Aston Villa was and wanted to be as a football club. And he had 3 words in mind. All 3 are still painted inside the Bodymoor Heath training ground, the first of which is fearless. And I can understand that fearlessness, bravery, courage are critical components on the field. And in fact, you probably aren't going to be a professional footballer if you aren't any of these things. That goes without saying. But you do have to be courageous in big games, in big moments, and against big opponents. You also have to be brave if you're going to play for Aston Villa because it's a big club with a lot of expectation. There's also an off-field aspect to these values. For example, it's courageous to hire a manager who had a glorious playing career but very little managerial or coaching experience behind him. And if the club had to dismiss Steven Gerrard, for example, that too at this stage would be a courageous decision. So these are good words that I certainly think are still relevant today. The second word he identified was together or togetherness or being connected. And in a football parlance, being connected is critical. You have to be connected as a group. You have to be difficult to break down. You have to be disciplined. That means you hold your shape correctly. Off the field, though, a club or an organization as big as Aston Villa that has so many different departments and components to it must also be connected. I mean, imagine if the accounting or finance department was not connected with what was happening in the women's program or in the club shop or the game day vendors or the youth academy, et cetera, et cetera. It's very difficult in large organizations to have everyone focused and pointing in the same direction. So again, this is a very relevant bunch of words we see in front of us, but there's another aspect to these words that are really, really important, and that's the relationship between what happens on the field and what happens in the terraces. And we could see during the Manchester City game how at times the players drove the supporters, and at other times how the supporters infused the players with adrenaline. That symbiotic relationship is absolutely critical for success. And during the Dean Smith era, particularly in the last year of the championship and the first year of the Premier League, I would say we've never been more together than during that period in time. And the third critical value or words that define who we were, who we are, and who we aspire to be is hardworking or industrious. Now, Dean Smith had prepared as that third word painted on the walls, and prepared was the club's motto, still is, I think. But to me, being prepared is an aspect of hardworking or industrious. I think you are expected to be prepared when you are a football club. And I would also expect that anybody who works either as an executive or in a key role would be a hardworking individual. But there's something even more important about these words at the bottom, because these words connect us to the community and the people that Aston Villa serves, and that is the city of Birmingham. And the more I read or research England's second city, the more blown away and impressed I am about what an incredible community it is that has given the world so much. I mean, this city was at the center of the Industrial Revolution. There was innovation, there was skill, there was trade, but through it all, there was hard work. People went to work and put a shift in, sometimes to their own detriment and health. They worked hard, they play hard to provide a better future for their family. Sometimes the trades pass down from generation to generation, and it takes time to prepare or to become skilled. And innovation, well, in Birmingham during the time of the Industrial Revolution, more patents were filed from that community than anywhere else in England, including London. That is incredible to me, and we are still seeing the benefits of some of that hard work today. So look at these words on this page and tell me if there is something that doesn't belong here, or if maybe there's a word missing. But I think these words here, these values, perfectly represent who we were, who we are, and who we aspire to be. And without these, it's difficult to try to design an actual logo. Our first design decision is the shape of the badge. And like everything else we're about to do, we have to have an authentic and legitimate reason why we are choosing that design element. There has to be a story behind it, and that story has to be true. And for me, not just because I was young during this time, but that shape is the circle, and there are many reasons for it. Yes, Aston Villa's most glorious period in its history was while the players were wearing the circular badge on their chest. They won the European Cup, they won the league, they won the European Super Cup. I think that's not up for debate. This was the most glorious period in the club's history, and if we want to return to those glory days, maybe we need to return to a circular badge. But the circle, by its very nature, is a symbol of connectivity and togetherness. It is one continuous line in eternity. You are in the circle. You are together. You are connected. There's also a cycle of life aspect to the shape, because Your grandparents take your parents to the villa. Your parents take you. You take your kids. And this cycle repeats since 1874. And imagine if you're a young player coming into the Villa Academy at age 6 or 7. You aspire to be a first teamer. You work your way up into the reserves. Then you get to the first team. You go on to have a successful professional career. And where do you go when it's all done? Sometimes back as a coach or a staff member or an ambassador, an alumni, or maybe even just as a fan. But so many of our alumni come back to the Villa. And that's the cycle of life that is represented by the circle. Now that we've arrived on the circular shape with a good story behind it, we also want to differentiate our circle from other clubs that have circular badges, because there are many, not just in the Premier League and in England itself, but around the world. It's also very important for us to locate the club, not just at Villa Park, which is as big a part of the Aston Villa brand as the colors and the badge itself, but also Birmingham and ideally the Midlands. And we can do that using a couple of very simple design elements. So we'll fill it in with the sky blue. But these finial shapes and designs are really interesting to me because they are the arrowheads that are located on the fencing outside Villa Park, primarily outside the Holy Trinity, but all around the fencing that surrounds Villa Park. They're arrowheads. They are finials that are handcrafted and designed by the skilled tradespeople that forged them from Birmingham themselves. So we're telling another story here now. These are made and forged by craftspeople from the community that Villa is serving. We also have a compass motif occurring here. And this to me is what represents Aston Villa's stature as the pride of the Midlands, because when you reside in the Midlands, you must travel in all 4 directions. Can you also see the global aspirations potentially in this motif? Because the club does want to be recognized worldwide. And let's be honest, it is recognized worldwide for a lot of people. And isn't it interesting that the owners who are now stewarding this club, Nassif Sawiris and Wes Edens, have the initials NSWE, the 4 directions of a compass. So we've located the club by attaching a Villa Park detail to the outside. We've differentiated our circle from other Premier League clubs. We have attached it to the hardworking trades and skilled workers of Birmingham who forged these decorative finials. And we've also created our place in the Midlands with the owner's initials creating a compass. That's a lot of storytelling by adding these 4 arrowheads. Now, it's been a while since I completed that fan survey regarding the Crest redesign, but I seem to recall that one of the questions was about the star and the design element of it and whether it should be incorporated and other questions relating to it. And quite frankly, I think the achievement of being one of the first English teams to win a European Cup along with Nottingham Forest was a really big deal, not just at the time, but still today. I mean, think about it. When Manchester City came to Villa Park, we had fans that were chirping at their fans because they didn't have one of these. And many of those fans who were doing the chirping weren't even alive when that star was earned. So really, isn't this star actually a bigger part of our history, and that maybe it shouldn't just be the little ornamental star, which is what most clubs do with it on their jerseys or in their badge? And is there an opportunity to take this 5-point gold star and maybe create our own and tell more stories by using it? I think we can. So if we agree that earning the star by winning a European Cup in the 80s is a bigger, more monumental and meaningful aspect to Aston Villa's glorious history, even by today's standards, then shouldn't that design element be bigger, more meaningful and monumental in the Crest design? Like, why does it have to be a small 5-point gold star? Why couldn't it be, say, a Villa-inspired 12-point star? And why 12 points, do you ask? Well, let's infuse another story into this crest, because Aston Villa is one of the 12 founding members of the Football League. Only 11 other clubs can brag about being founders. Founders? like the people of Birmingham who worked hard and innovated and invented things, like William McGregor. Only in his case, he helped invent a league of 12 teams that has now grown into 92 plus clubs. But there's another interesting aspect to the number 12 that takes us back to the connected and together aspect. And that's the 11 players on the pitch and the 12th man in the stands. And again, we saw how that worked against Manchester City. A symbiotic relationship that is crucial to success. More stories. What else do you see in this design? Because I see A's and V's in the tips of the star and the negative space, and a good graphic designer could probably tidy that up a little bit and make it more obvious. But do you also see the cogs of machinery or even an engine here? I do. So let's take this back to Birmingham again and hard work, inventing things. Engines were invented in Birmingham and were being manufactured there for the longest time. Not sure if they still are. And I know a lot of people kind of laughed and scoffed at the idea during the Lerner era of the Villa engine, but I actually thought it was quite clever to attach a really important aspect of the community that the club served with a footballing philosophy. The challenge was we didn't have the people, the experience, the know-how, and the players to pull off the Villa engine. Let's add two small but significant design elements. Do you see an A at the top? And do you see a V at the bottom? You know, one of the questions that was asked in the fan survey about the crests was, does a crest inspire confidence? And how do you visually represent confidence? Well, one of the ways is you don't actually fully spell out your club name or that you're a football club with FC. You do it subtly, almost like with a secret handshake. And rather than font or through graphics, you are, in this case, using very subtle design elements to say who you are. AV, Aston Villa. And then finally, adding to the fearless theme, the rampant lion, the very symbol of courage and bravery, and the symbol that connects us through all the Villa badges over the years. Let's compare this badge to past iterations because you don't want a complete departure from your history. You want to build on your history. And you can see the rampant lion, even though it has changed over the years, is certainly the consistent theme throughout. There's the Villa circular badge, but even the outside of that initial badge in the bottom right there is a little bit more reflective of what we've created here today. And then apart from your own badges, you also want to compare yourself against other clubs, and in this case, Premier League clubs, many of whom have a circular badge. And the one thing that they all have in common is that they spell out their names. So are we differentiating our circular badge from theirs? Yes, we are, because we've added the finials, a separate story unto itself. And we are not writing out the club's name or football club on the badge. And that, to me, is what confidence is all about, not to mention traditional versus modern graphics. Now, you also have to do a reverse version of your badge design. So we go all white on a dark background. I think this holds up. Most importantly, though, is going through all the words that we talked about earlier and seeing if they do, in fact, match up here. Hardworking and industrious. Well, we have the engine in the background, the finials developed by the hardworking people of Birmingham. Do we have the Midlands? Yes, we do, with the 4 pointed directions of the compass. Do we have Villa Park? Well, yes, those finials are inspired by the wrought iron gates outside the stadium. Fearless is the lion. Together, 11 players, 12th man in the stands, plus the circle itself. And does this spell out Aston Villa? Well, yes, it does. A and V at the top and bottom. Is it heritage? I think a little bit. Is it modern? Yes, although I'm not a graphic designer, as I said. And here are some other alterations of the colors. You know, there are many combinations you can use if you want the star to be yellow, for example. Again, I'm not a graphic designer. I don't really want feedback from you saying, well, I don't like that aspect or I didn't really like this. That's not the point of the exercise. The point is There has to be meaning behind design elements, not just, oh, I like the circle. Well, why do you like the circle? What does the circle represent? That is how you truly create a badge that's representative of who you are. And I think that Villa's in this weird place right now where they don't really know who they are, and they should be examining themselves very closely and doing some thorough self-reflection. In fact, during the international break, I'm going to do a show about Aston Villa's executive structure and how decisions are made and why the footballing side needs to be distinct from the business and commercial side. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for watching. Until next time, be well. God save the King. And up the mighty Villa.